See, 11 o'clock. 11 a.m., we are back in session.
Very good.
And we have the consent, next we have the consent agenda. So does anybody have anything that they would like to pull off the consent agenda?
No.
Nope. Okay, citizens' comments on consent agenda items, which would be approval of the minutes of June 6th, letter of support for the hippie program, invoice from iCard Merrill, the award of the engineering library, a resolution for the ADA transition plan, and a resolution for the school resource officer expansion. Anybody like to speak on any of those items? Okay, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, next we move into the regular agenda. Now would be the time for citizens' comments on regular agenda items. The fiscal year 2019 for BSI canal maintenance, the fiscal year 2019 for PGI canal maintenance, the legal counsel for risk protection orders, the expansion of the school resource program, the revised settlement offer from Winter Park Dodge, the purchase of 328 East Virginia Avenue, and the historic district sign toppers.
To do the sale of the property at 412 Allen Street. I think you may have.
Oh, I don't have that on. Oh, yeah, I do. I just had that start. Okay, and also the sale of the property at 412 Allen Street. Regular agenda items, citizens' comments on those items. Anybody want to speak on anything from the regular, you can, well, she's there, so come over here. That would be better. Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Don Sabatini and I have been sworn. I just wanted to comment on the settlement with the Winter Haven property owner and say that it's a great business opportunity for us to do two things. One is to collect some revenue, and second one is to set a precedence. And then thirdly, I'd like to comment that I don't think the business owner has been forthright and deserves any leeway in this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Regular agenda items? Citizens' comments? Okay, seeing none, we will move into the budget.
TCC wants to give.
Oh, come on in.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I took a break. Martha Beretta, you ready for speaking?
Yeah.
Oh my, regular agenda items was the signs? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your support for the historic sign toppers. It is the first step that is taken in uniting our historic district that runs from Fisherman's Village all the way to Cooper Street and from Nesbitt over. When we do this, when we put the sign toppers up, it will acknowledge some of the historical structures that right now are not acknowledged, like our historic churches. Also, down Cooper Street, Sharpie which will be acknowledged, which was very significant in our commercial fishing industry. So I ask you to please support the sign toppers. We are preparing for 2021, the 100th anniversary of Punta Gorda, of the county, not of Punta Gorda. This will be a first step. The sign toppers throughout the entire historic district, all the way through. And then hopefully by 2021, we will be able to have the interpretive markers in place. We are an exceptional community, and we will get lots of visitors here for our centennial, and to have our historic district in place with all of our sign toppers, with our interpretive markers, will bring visitors to our city, and will, just as we look in the state at who we are as a historic city, it will make a real difference. And so I thank you for your support of historic markers throughout the historic district, and ultimately look forward to your support for the interpretive markers so that we will have all of this in place by 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Regular agenda items? Which it basically includes everything else left on the agenda. Okay, seeing none, we will move into the BSI Canal Maintenance fiscal year 2019 budget.
Good morning, Sharon Nippenberg, Controller for the city. We have met with both of the canal advisory boards and have gone through their recommendations, staff recommendations, and are now presenting to you today the results of that, which they have both recommended to you. So we'll start with BSI. See if I can make this little thing work. The BSI current assessment is $555. We are recommending that that remain the same at $555. We will show you that we believe that with the assumptions that FEMA and the state will participate in repairing the damages, that we will not need an additional assessment for the 12.5% match from the Canal District. This is the history of the assessments for BSI. 2017, we added the 110, so we were at a total of 570 to do that major dredging project. Once the project was done, we were able to reduce the assessment to 95, and we are proposing that for the last 4 years, it stay at 95. The great news is that's just 4 years, not 5 years. We had found that we could actually lop off 1 year of assessments. So that was good news for everybody in BSI. The assumptions we're using that we can maintain the current operating assessment, and we just already discussed the dredging assessment. And then we're looking forward now 3 years in the future to 2022, that most likely we will want to retain that $95 that we were going to end for the dredging and move it over to operating. Everybody understands that this is not being decided today. It is merely in the 5-year plan, and it is merely a result of projecting out expenditures for the next 5 years. So a lot can change. The other assumptions, of course, that we mentioned were that the federal and state assistance for Hurricane Irma for the projects. There's actually 2 projects. There is the full restoration from the results of the hurricane. There's also a small mitigation project that staff is excited about. FEMA has given the nod to the cost effectiveness of riprapping all of the seawalls that were damaged and are going to be repaired. So that would be a nice project. It's an $8 million project spread between PGI and BSI of riprap that we would be able to install at a very small cost to the city, just our 12.5% match. And if you want to discuss it at another time, the engineering staff would be happy to show you that they analyzed that and saw where we do have seawalls riprap for various reasons, none of those were damaged during this last storm. So that was very encouraging. The final note to all of this is we do not have a signed guarantee from FEMA yet for their assistance. If that were to change, obviously the assessments would have to increase next year. And then we do have temporary inspectors. Well, there will only be one in BSI because we'll only have one contractor working in BSI. Their work is planned to begin October 1, although they've given indications, I think, that maybe they can start sooner. So there's extra funding in 2019 that would be part of the FEMA match. Any questions on assumptions? They're the standard assumptions you've seen for all the operating budgets, yes?
I just would like to make it clear that when this was presented to the Burnt Star Isles Canal Advisory Committee, that the Canal Advisory Committee, and I would concur with them, stated that the $95 dredging assessment will end when the payment is completed. That was our commitment to the residents, and they said it's like government, once they start to tax, they just keep on taxing it. They said if there's any kind of new assessment for some new particular reason, then we will discuss that, but it would be something that's new and different. And in any way, they did not want it to appear that they were just continuing a tax. And so I think Sharon, I just needed to make that statement.
I appreciate that, yes, that they did make that very clear, and when we get to the pro forma, you'll see we made that delineation so that it would be clear. These are their capital projects right now. They have not stopped any of them. They feel they're important to continue working on the barge access. They would like to work on the corner widening. There is not an estimate for that project yet. The actual expenditures would be out in 22, 23. We can't say that we have funding for it yet since we really don't know what it's going to cost. That was all discussed. So, and I apologize for the audience. I know that's really, really hard to read. But the top three lines are what were just pointed out. The operating assessment maintains at 460. The dredging assessment is at 95, and it does end in 2021. Staff is showing you that most likely, given that we want to continue seawall replacement at least the current standard, that we would need to put an additional operating assessment in place in 2022. Has not been decided, yes.
I'm just curious, this may be a question for Rick, but with all the seawall that's being replaced because of Irma, do we anticipate a reduction in the need of seawall replacement in the near future because we have so much more new seawall that's already been done?
For the record, Rick Keeney, probably not, because we don't, BSI historically has not had a lot of seawall failures, so we don't do a lot of repairs in BSI. So we have a program that's proactive. We inspect our seawalls annually, and Gary Disher, he has all that on the computer, and we have all the seawalls ranked. So our program that we have established, we try to get rid of the bad seawalls before they fall. Okay. So once Irma's failures are completed, we want to get back to our regularly scheduled program.
Okay,
So
thank you. I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah, we want to get back to what we've been doing to keep up, because we feel we got a very good program and it was taking care of the neighborhoods pretty well, so,
Great, thank you.
thank you.
Sharon, when is the contract for BSI let again? New rates for the contractors?
Are you talking for Irma or just for regular?
Regular.
Marion?
Marion Pace, Procurement Manager. Currently, we do not have the ongoing contracts with a seawall contractor for our regular program. They will be authorized to conduct any type of repairs and stuff in their zones as they're doing the Irma. So we are relying on our current contracts to make those types of repairs if needed.
And then when, it starts October, but how long was that term of that?
They're supposed to, as far as in the PGI, the first contract we let is supposed to be completed through July 9th of 2019.
What about BSI? 'Cause they haven't
BSI
started
will,
yet.
I think they anticipated like 5 months, so we will be going out shortly for a new seawall contract that'll take place as the other contractors complete their work.
Okay.
So what I'd like to point out to you, in the current year, fiscal year 2018, we have shown the full amount of the seawall damage for Hurricane Irma. So that's why you see the $1,073,000. Up above, you'll see the anticipated revenue coming in from the federal government and state government. And the 12.5% match can be absorbed in our current operating budget. And of course, that is assuming that there will be no additional damage this summer. what basically, in a practical means, even if there were damage this summer, we do not have another contractor. We don't have a contract to do current work, and we certainly wouldn't usurp any of the productivity from Hurricane Irma. So any new damage would have to fall at the bottom of the list. We do have excess work available in each purchase order above and beyond what they're doing for FEMA. So the work could be done, but it would be done at the end, which means it would spill over into 2019. And in 2019, you'll see that we are back to a normal operating budget of basically $300,000 for seawall repair. And that, both the board feels strongly that we need to budget that. We need to anticipate that there might be things that will occur, whether things move into a category of 4 or 5 and must be replaced immediately, or we have a major rainstorm and some things fall down and have to be dealt with. So they were anxious to get back to a regular storm preparation level. And we're trying to not touch the reserves at all and leave them basically at about a $200,000 level, which is not really the level we're at for all the other funds. The reason, of course, is that in a fund this small where the annual revenue is, less than $500,000, having a 7.5% reserve would not really do much at all. So we were looking more at how much seawall could we do, because this is really like an emergency reserve for them. If say 80 foot of seawall fell down unexpectedly, yes, we could cover it with that. Any questions on BSI? This is just mentioning the other reserve. If you'll recall, we had increased the BSI assessment so that they could set aside $45,000 a year. They are doing that. Just so you can see, that's that second reserve, or the first reserve level where it says reserve seawall replacement end. So it was at 100, it's growing to 110, 155. Then you see in 2021, when we actually do the project, we will deplete all of that reserve we've been building, and in fact, we'll need one more year of that fund to come back and replenish this. But they didn't feel like the project could wait any longer than 2021. So that concludes the BSI with their assessment being maintained. We're going to PGI. PGI is just a little bit different situation. They have a current assessment of 550. Staff and the Canal Advisory Board are recommending that we add a $100 Hurricane Irma assessment, which would raise this to $650. And we will show you why that's necessary. Here's the history. We've been maintaining the 550 for the past 2 years, 16, 17, and 18. So for 3 years, we've been at 550. Their rate increase was intended to cover any anticipated changes in contracts, plus work on that project of determining what we're going to do when we start losing access of vacant lots. And you'll see in their 5-year plan how they've addressed that. So the additional $100 assessment will be repayment for what we're calling debt service on Hurricane Irma. As you'll recall, last month, we created a specific line of credit to deal with the cash flow needs of doing the repairs right now and knowing that the federal government and state would not step in as quickly as we need them to. So once this assessment comes in, we will start paying down on that line of credit.
Have we gotten any reimbursements yet?
No, and this is the caution for this project, we are continuing to get questions from Virginia where they're doing all the costing of this project. And I'm going to say it's going to be at least 3 months before we'll actually get a document from FEMA that says you have been awarded this much in funds and please sign. It's taken 5 months to get the one for just debris. So we signed it a week ago, and now it'll be a matter of how soon will the state offer us the ability to draw on that one. So that took 5 months. This one has been working through the process since March, so we're two months into the process. So that's why I'm guessing at least 3 more months before we'll see an offer for the funds. And this, of course, is just the caveat, just reminding us that this is what we're looking for, and it has not been awarded yet. I mentioned the mitigation project to you. This is PGI's share of it, $6,977,470 of the total amount. We will continue on with our temporary employees. We think that's working very well. We have 1 inspector per contractor. So they're one-on-one, they're out in the field all day long. They're dealing with issues, things that are beyond their authority level. They turn over to Mark Gehring, and he'll make the final decisions on if there's anything that has to be re-engineered. So this gives us the ability to know exactly what the contractor's doing and that they're doing it according to our plans, and if they're not, we're going to get approval. But we don't slow down the work. That's the key thing. We've got to keep moving. Any questions on assumptions?
I have a quick question, Sharon. Where do we have riprap?
Right now, we have riprap. Rick, would you do that one for me, please? There's only very specific areas where we currently do riprap.
For the record, Rick Keeney, it's throughout the entire canal system. You more than likely see it on curves where there's, when the seawalls are put into the soil, if there's not a lot of soil around it, that'd be a place we would put it. Erosion areas where the currents take the dirt away. A lot of places you'll see on the harbor, we'll put it. So it's throughout the whole canal system, but mostly where we want to reinforce the toe of the seawall is typically where it is.
Okay, thank you.
And I can't remember the exact quantity. I know there's 90 sites, Rick, but I think there were 20 or 30 of our drainage sites that actually washed out. And when they washed out, they took a lot of seawall. One of the best examples is right here on the harbor. You can see there's 3 big drainage pipes, and we're just fortunate that there weren't any buildings close by. So a new project that has been put in place by the city engineer is that those will always be rip-wrapped. So that was the start of the mitigation program, because the law with FEMA is they will only restore you to the level that you were at prior to the storm. So since we wanted rip-wrap them, we had to work with a hazard mitigation coordinator for him to decide that, yes, that was a cost-effective approach. In those discussions, it came out, well, where else would you like to rip-wrap? And we looked at the maps and we showed them the value of the rip-wrapping. We ran the numbers. It took about a month, and it was amazing that it came out well within their guidelines of cost-effectiveness work. And so they're willing to put in a significant amount of money to the project. So we're excited about that one. This is the 5-year capital projects for PGI, replacing a truck at the end of its life. This is the seawall alternative study, and this is being done in conjunction with BSI. So the timing of the money means that we're hiring 1 consultant to do the study. The spoil site channel and the Ponce de Leon are going to be combined together, am I right, to do 1 study. Hopefully we'll find a consultant that can do those 2. Any overlapping work can be done for both of them. And those are all efficiencies to the way we currently do our repairs. Any questions? We've already gone over these, except What I want to mention here, when we look at the pro forma for the debt service repayment, what you're going to see is that in the initial year, which is the current year, we're going to do the same thing we proposed in BSI, which is to take all the funds that we currently have not designated for any type of work and use them against our 12.5% match. So obviously, it's the beginning of the rainy season, things can change, but we still have our line of credit to back us up. So right now, we're proposing that that $1,090,000 be used against the 12.5% match. If for some reason by September 30th, that does not prove to be true, and that we have to continue on with additional work, we would just put out an additional year or two of debt service. And all of that can be planned year by year. The nice thing about the special assessment districts is we are only defining the next coming budget year. So right now, we're saying, yes, we want an assessment of $100,000 for FY 2019. Yes, we want an operating budget for 2019. The other 4 years are planning numbers. You are not making that decision today. It's just planning and giving everybody a lot of advance notice of what, if everything continues the way we've assumed, what we can do. So here's the pro forma itself. To not be repetitive, but to point out some very important things. If you look down at middle of the screen, you'll see the $25,199,500 for Hurricane Irma. That's using the exact amount, I love to say exact, the estimated amount that we believe, the 50,399 linear feet times the estimated $500. That's that number. Up above, you'll see an offsetting match to that from FEMA, from the state. The financing part, the $3,165,660, that's exactly the 12.5% match. No, obviously, this is not accounting, this is budgeting. So you show the revenue as a line, but down below, right below the $25 million, you see $1,090,000, the first payment off of that $3,165,000, if that makes sense. So that's the first $1,190,000, and that's why we are able to keep the additional assessment to 100, because we only need 4 more years of $560,000 to completely pay off that $3,165,000. So at this time, that's what we're anticipating. There's a little bit more to this that you might like to know, and that is there were 2 other issues that PGI district were grappling with. One is that we did have some work that needed to be done that was non-hurricane related, and we have spread that work and fit it into the current contractors, and it will be spread over 2018 and 2019. So we call that pre-hurricane work, and it was a total of $317,000 spread over those 2 years. We also have what we call the gap work. So as FEMA identified what they were willing to fund for seawalls, it didn't quite mesh up with what the city would do if we were funding it by ourselves. We would never allow a 3 foot or less, so 36, I said 3 foot, 36 feet. But it's 36 is what we won't allow, but the board agreed to go up to 40 because those last couple were there. We call those gaps. So we're gonna do a seawall FEMA repair here, then we're gonna do one here, and there was a gap left in the middle. We weren't comfortable with those gaps. They will be non-FEMA funded, and the board agreed that it made sense for the safety, the integrity of the system to go ahead and fill those gaps as we're doing our repairs. They were concerned, would it slow down the FEMA repairs? Not measurably, because we're dealing with, I forget how many. 12 locations. Just 12 locations. So, and we're talking 36 feet, so it will not measurably slow down anything. And we're going to make sure that as we do them, the high priorities are done with the high priorities, and the low priorities are done with the low priorities. So we may come back later to do a gap with the other side of the damaged area that was considered a low priority. So we had to mesh those in, and we did that between 18 and 19 also. So those are in the line called seawall and cap replacement. So that is non-FEMA work. So that's where the gaps are, and that's where the old storm is. There's also an additional amount in 2019 for just anything that might occur that year. So there is some comfort level that there is funding in 2019 for additional work.
So why do the numbers get so big between 19 and 20 on that line, from 805 to 1.7 million? Is that because we're gonna get behind somehow?
In 20, we're going to go back up to our normal, regular level of service.
Okay.
We believe we will be done with the FEMA work, and if it's not, it'll just carry over. But in 2020, we're happy to say that we won't be postponing any work, and we'll go back to our regular level of operations. And you can see that in 2022 is the last year we're projecting the needed 100. And that would only change if the funding changes or the magnitude of the work changes.
And the contracts that we get?
And the contracts continue, yes. Any questions on PGI? If,
You need motions?
we're just looking for a consensus and an indication that that's what we should bring to you at the July 3rd meeting.
Looks good to me.
Very good.
Yes.
No
Right.
motions.
All right,
Got it.
I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have award of at-will legal counsel services for risk protection orders to FAR Law Firm.
Marion Pace, Procurement Manager. Before you is an agreement to award an at-will legal counsel service for risk protection orders for use by the police department for a program that they are now having to run. And I will leave that to Jason if you need a description of the program. To FAR Law Firm of Punta, Gorda, Florida. It will be based on hourly rates. And the contract will be for 5 years with the option to renew for an additional 5.
And we use them because they have the expertise in this.
Any questions or comments? Motions?
Motion for approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second to approve the award. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimously.
The next item is the School Resource Officer Program with agreement with the school district, where they will be paying for the 3 additional officers, one in high school, one in the middle school, and one at Baker, and they will be paying all the personnel and operating costs associated with those positions.
Questions or, yep.
When they mention operating costs, what do they include in that? The
Anything
vehicle?
to uniforms, supplies.
Training.
Those kinds of things.
Okay, so we have to provide the additional vehicles.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That was the only thing left out of this one, yes.
Which in the summertime, they do work as regular city officers.
They do.
Yes, they do.
Yep.
You need a motion?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I'll make a motion, we approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the additional school resource officer in the schools. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
And now we move into unfinished business. The first is which the revised offer of settlement, Winter Park Dodge.
Yeah, I received word earlier in the week that the attorney that's representing Winter Park Dodge is in court this morning. He had hoped to be here by the time that this matter was brought up. I would request that we postpone this until my time later in the agenda to give him time to be here. And if he's not here by then, you can either consider it or postpone it and reschedule for the next city council meeting. But
Okay, let's give him a chance to show up. All right, next we have sale of the property at 412 Allen Street through the city's online auction system.
Marion Pace, Procurement Manager. As discussed at the last council meeting, my senior purchasing agent, she went through the county's database records to try to determine what a fair sale price would be for 412 Allen Street. She came through with the first estimate, and then one of the properties was not property described on the Charlotte County's website, so once she dug a little further, and depending, looking at the square footage for both of the properties that was compared against 524 Allen Street and 405 Carmelita, the average sale price was 1.82 a square foot, which would result in an estimated sale price for 412 Allen as $17,700. We do have a projected expenditure for this property totaling $22,409.32, and that was for payment of back taxes and estimated demolitions cost. Right, we would like to attempt to sell this property on publicsurplus.com. We'd work closely with city attorney and McHale to devise the terms that we would have to disclose on the sale on the website, and look for your direction as far as a reserve price if you approve the sale at auction.
So how long would we have to leave it out there on the auction? We can determine?
We can determine that. I know for some of the, for like when we were selling the buildings at the Henry Street property, they were up for a month and a half. It all determines on how the auction's going and whatnot. So, I mean, we can put it out for a period of time. If we're not happy with the results, we can definitely extend that auction time.
I mean, I think this number is closer to what we have in it than, it's worth a try. We can always fall back on the donation if it doesn't sell.
I agree.
I think 17,000 would be,
Have we tried to contact the next-door neighbor that had indicated interest, now that we know we have a value on the property?
No, I have not. I waited for your direction. I will get with McHale to obtain the contact information.
I mean, I think we should, before we go through the process
we
of
should
getting
offer
everything on the website,
Okay.
why don't we ask him first and say, this is what we're going to put it on the market for? If you're interested, this is the price. And if he doesn't want it, then we put it on the market.
I could be fine with that, yep.
Well, I did speak with McHale about it, and she mentioned that they had were notified, or they knew that they could go purchase the property for and pay the back taxes plus $200, and they did not do that. So if they were to have paid the back taxes of $13,563 and 68 cents, plus 200, it would be considerably less than the 17.7. But I guess to give them, and then he would have to demolish it. We wouldn't, because that was, that was like 8,400 or something to demolish it? I can't remember.
8,800 and some change, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you're right. So we can give them that. Well, then, at least we're going to come close to breaking even on what we've spent on it. I think that's the way to go. I would certainly see if we could check with the next-door neighbor first, and if he does, I mean, give him 3 or 4 or 5 days or whatever to respond to you, and if he doesn't, then we put it on the market.
I'd like to defer to the city attorney to make sure that that would be appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Okay.
fine. Because he's immediately next door,
Yeah.
it's sort of like a unique situation. And do you want the city council to consider a reserve if you're going to go forward with the auction?
Yes, please.
17,000.
17,000. And Ann just reminded me, and I just, on my email, McHale's already contacted Honch Demolition for demolishing, so I'll have her put that off for right now to see what the response for demolishing.
I would go ahead.
Oh,
We're
Oh,
demolishing,
okay.
We're demolishing the building.
Okay.
because it's quite possible that maybe he went, or they went and got bids for the demolition. It could have been a lot bigger number than what we're
Yeah.
seeing here,
Oh,
so.
That's a good
We
point.
already approved the demolition.
So then we tell him the price is 17,000,
And it will be demolished.
and it's going to be demolished. You're going to buy the land, period. That makes it simple.
Makes it more attractive for him.
Sure.
Okay.
How, do you want a term for the auction, or are you just gonna, maybe in once, maybe when we come back in August, you can just update us on if anything's happened.
If we do go out for the auction, I would recommend no shorter than 3 weeks.
I'd say, well, we're taking our break. August meeting gives us some time. The first, it's August what, Karen?
22 is.
22nd?
22nd.
Yeah, so maybe you could, list it up until that point and then give us an update. If it didn't sell, then we can make a decision by then.
That's roughly 2 months. That sounds fair.
Good job, Marion.
And
And,
All right. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have purchase. We're selling and now we're purchasing 328 East Virginia Avenue.
For the record, Joan LeBeau, Urban Design Manager, and the county has contacted the city regarding this parcel. It is up for sale. The 2017 tax roll market value associated with this property is $4,128. Being that it is in an area where it's been identified as the need for housing, staff thought it would be appropriate to come to council and ask for approval to purchase the property and then maybe partner with others to have affordable housing units built on it. We would ask for council approval and appropriation of the funds not to exceed the 4128.
And that's all the county's asking?
We may be able to get it for a little less. They weren't sure, but that is what's on the tax deed, so it would not exceed that. We would ask less than that.
I think that sounds fine.
I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I move approval. Second.
We have a motion, a second, to purchase the property not to exceed 4128. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
And next we have Historic District sign toppers.
For the record, Mitchell Austin, Urban Design. Back in the 1990s, there was a program for sign toppers to denote the National Register Historic District. Those toppers were branded with hibiscus logos, and those signs were last replaced after Hurricane Charlie blew all the street signs down back in 2004. So those toppers are in desperate need of replacement. With the city's rebranding efforts and the new direction in terms of unifying the historic areas of the city under the historic Punta Gorda brand, we thought that it was a good time to bring this back up as to, do we just want to replace these in place? What do we want to think about branding those signs, et cetera? So the sign toppers currently are located in one small portion of the National Register District and areas immediately outside of that district. They are all west of US 41, southbound Cross Street, and extend to Shreve. So in terms of replacement, the Historic Preservation Advisory Board considered the branding, what sort of message logo needs to be put on the signs, what is the location, should it be confined to the National Register District, to all three of the historic districts, or possibly extended to the entire community redevelopment area, which is an area which contains a significant number of the historic structures that still exist within the city. So the city staff reached out to the consultant Aqua, who provided 3 potential sign toppers designs, which are consistent with the brand of Punta Gorda's Florida Harborside hometown, and denoted that the area was historic. So there's option 1, option 2, and option 3. The Historic Preservation Advisory Board did prefer the option 3 sign shape and messaging. In terms of location, we looked at three options, locations that would actually designate the National Register Historic District, sign locations that would designate all three of the boundaries of the existing historic district, or the entire community redevelopment area. So in terms of scale, there are 29 locations within the National Register District. If you want to look at all the locations within the historic districts, you'd be looking at 82, and then 194 locations to cover the entire community redevelopment area. The Historic Preservation Advisory Board, again, they did recommend option 3, sign topper, and they did recommend that City Council consider using these sign toppers for the entire CRA area, which would be 100 sign locations. I know that City Council, or City staff is just looking for direction on how to proceed with this. We haven't actually costed any of these signs or the locations, but in speaking with the sign staff in the right-of-way division at the city, they did say that the previous toppers cost about $70 a piece. So using $100 as a planning number, hopefully we could be more cost-effective than that. But at $100 a sign topper, we're looking at a total project cost of less than $20,000.
You know you're going to get 5 different opinions right now, right?
Certainly. Staff's prepared for that.
I don't know that I would do the entire CRA. I think because, you know, we had these discussions about historic structures closer into PGI. Some of those homes are 50 years old. Were we going to put them on the program and all of that? And we decided not to do that. So I think the closer we get down to the newer areas, it might be confusing to people because we're really not doing anything to keep them in a historic program like we are, the National Register. So I would, and really, when you're in the outside of the downtown core, there are a few, but not as many as are populated in the purple, the yellow, and the green. So I would go to the mid-range, which the 82, which actually have some significance, because I think if we just dilute it too much, it just is more clutter, maybe. I like the shape of the sign. I like the teal color better. I just don't know, seeing what we have now, if they're gonna be like relief like that, or they're gonna be flat, depending. I don't know how the white will hold up in our weather. That's the only thing. I like the teal color on design number 2. I like that coloring, but I definitely like this shape better. But I'm open to the 4 other opinions that you're about to hear. Who'd like to express their opinion?
There's only 3 other opinions because I happen to agree with you.
Oh, okay.
I think the intermediate, I agree with the idea that it would dilute it if we just did it all. Okay, I think we want to be focused in the area. I do like the option 3 shape. I will defer to the mayor as far as colors and so forth like that, because that's not my expertise.
So I would concur with the Historic Preservation Committee as far as the color, because I believe it would be more visible in day and night. So I think that that's something we need to consider. And I like the way this particular sign, I don't know, it just makes the wording stand out better. I would agree that with both of you that not the whole CRA, but I think to more than just the exact historic districts themselves, because I think many of us might think that there are homes that are actually in the historic district when they're really not, but it's an historic area. So I think to kind of meet in the middle, and perhaps, not 194, but something.
82.
Well, I don't know.
Little
Go
more
back,
than
go back
82.
to the sign that shows 82 so we can see what that includes. Do you have
So,
one?
No, ma'am, but 82 would essentially cover the areas where you see colors. So the orange, the green, and the purple areas on that CRA map.
Well, I would
would
suggest
be the-
perhaps
the
we
district.
would want to include the hospital area and things like that. So, and, I think that the railroad defines
Yes, the
north of the
railroad depot.
railroad, and I don't know, I can't tell what street that is. Is that Charlotte? Or what comes?
If I may, we could use the historic extension of the railroad line. We could use Linear Park as the southern boundary when we get west of US 41.
That would be, that would be pretty good. But I think over by the railroad depot would be another, go back to because you had a red dot there, to the last map.
Oh, sorry, went the wrong way. Yes.
There you go. I would say Charlotte Avenue, Gill Street, West Virginia, and out to Shreve. I mean, that whole area, people tend to think of it as historic, even though it is historic in nature, but not necessarily part of the official historic. But to continue the whole entire CRA, perhaps it dilutes it. Just an opinion.
I like the linear park idea on the west side for sure. It may be just on the east side, the major intersections. It wouldn't have to be every, like by the depot, I think would be good.
Yeah, if we can, it can maybe be diluted down but I think down to Carmelita, some presence.
And King Street, like King Street
Yes.
is a very
Yes.
historical street, so I would want to include that.
What could we do from then Carmelita across? That way, would that cover by Linear Park?
Yeah,
If that was our southern boundary?
that would be fine.
Yes, because I agree with Nancy with that. There are areas that are not colored, which are in the zone, somewhere in the middle between those two choices.
Yeah, Carmelita would be a good,
I mean, I look at this as people driving down 41 don't realize what's in the city and what's in the county. And most of us don't, as we're driving around, don't realize what's technically somewhere. So, but we can redefine it so we're really showcasing the historic nature of our community. And that's what I think is important here.
Yeah, I think so.
I agree. I think the idea that, and maybe Nancy's alluding to it, and I think she is, as you get ready to enter these areas, we should also,
Yes.
this is part of our branding. So as by the hospital, that is not part of it, but that is as you're coming down Marion, you're entering. The same thing with 41 at the railroad depot. That's where you're entering. So we should have also a little bit of preview as we enter into the historic district that's demarked accordingly.
I would say on Shreve too, Olympia, Shreve.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not all the way to Henry, but maybe Henry too, because like you're saying, that would be like the gateway point. Like you're getting ready to go into the historic area.
Are you going to be able to
West
decipher all
Virginia.
this?
Certainly.
Or West
Awesome.
Virginia.
This is a very
Get your
competent
purple-
person.
Purple
This is a very
dots out.
competent
I
person.
think we're
He can
getting
do
things
this.
really complicated. The first thing I would like to say is, I want to know what the cost of these are going to be before we ever do anything with it. We can approve the concept of the design, but I want to know what they're going to cost, because that could be contingent upon how many we decide we want to put in.
Yep.
Correct.
And I think we're overcomplicating the situation. I think if we make it a little more simple and squared off area, it's going to be much more simple to identify the historic area of downtown. I would rather see, personally, I would rather see design number 1, or whatever it was, A, B, or C, I don't know how they were numbered, but I would personally rather see that, that one there. I think the white background is going to be easier to see. The teal is going to fade out from the sun down here. I think this is much less apt to fade out the way the other ones will. But I happen to like this design better. It's cleaner, it's simpler, it's more easily identifiable because people are used to seeing this design from the signs that are currently up. So that's just my personal opinion. But I certainly would want to know what they're going to cost before we
Oh,
do
of
anything
course.
further with the amount that we're planning on putting in.
Yeah, we're just throwing out ideas right now, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Is this paid out of general fund?
Yes?
yes.
Because already he said it's less than 20,000 if it's even at
Well,
that big.
that was an estimate.
Yeah.
We have not actually gone out yet
No.
based on, and we would definitely come back to you. So first decision. What design of the sign are we going to use? Are we okay with three or what?
I like 3.
I like 3.
I kind of personally, I liked one, but I will defer to the Historic Preservation Committee. That's why we have this group in place, so I'm willing to go there.
I think they're going to be more expensive because they're a special cutout. That's another issue.
But they're beautiful. We have a beautiful city. We don't want to go cheap. and
Well,
have
there's
ugly.
nothing that
It's not a
says
matter
we
of going
couldn't, we
cheap, it's a
couldn't.
matter of staying within a budget.
We could cost out both of them. I would suspect, as we go down this, you're gonna find a per unit cost vary depending on how many we order, because there's an upfront cost for the silk screening or whatever you're gonna do to actually manufacture it. So number 1 might cost $1,000, and number 192nd might cost $5. I don't, or something in between. So I think that, I have no problem asking staff to cost out option 1 and option 3. I just visually
agree with
prefer
that.
option
Good
3.
idea.
But if there's a $10 per unit difference between option 1 and option 3, then I would certainly also consider option 1 at this point. I'm just using it as an example. So it shouldn't be any big deal to cost out both of them. So I would ask you to, I would suggest we ask staff to cost out both of them, even though there's a kind of consensus here of preferring option 3, but it's not an unanimous, and I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
that's fine.
That's good.
Yeah, and find out where the price break lies with,
Yep.
any increments.
Do we have enough now to go on?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. City manager,
thought we-
recommendation from city officers.
No, next meeting, we'll have the tentative assessments you will be approving for Burnstar Isles and Punta Gorda Isles Canal assessments and the lot mowing assessment. We'll have an update on the general fund. And we're also going to have a revised scope for the master plan in front of you.
Thank you. City attorney.
Is the attorney for Mr. Plattner here yet? Seeing that he is not, what is your pleasure?
I see no reason not to go forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get this over with once and for all.
Very well.
In my opinion, it's still way too low, and I'm not willing to forgive anything
No.
in any long-term plan of any sort.
I made a statement at the last time we discussed it. We offered him something, and he wasn't even willing to go there, and I'm done discussing it.
Well, he came to us in January and said, I'm going to be open by the middle of February.
Yes, he
You have
did.
my commitment, I'm going to be open in February, and here's $15,000, and forgive the rest of my debt.
Right, and it's now June.
He lied, again. He lied. It's not the kind of person we want doing business in the city, I'm sorry, it isn't. He's been very unprofessional, and it's a disservice to the city and all the people that live in it. And I don't- and it's a
Earlier
horrible
today,
precedent.
I apologize.
Sorry.
Earlier today, we dealt with 2 developers who were very respectful to council.
Right,
That's all I'm gonna say.
exactly. I would like to make a motion, we continue moving forward with the foreclosure, and we do not forgive any of his loan.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously.
I'm going to assume that the motion in the second was for denial of the.
Denial.
Denial.
We're moving forward with the foreclosure
Foreclosure.
That's
notwithstanding.
correct.
I will advise the attorney accordingly and suggest if he wishes to listen to the video of today's proceeding.
And now, you mentioned to me last time that when he makes an offer, we have to entertain it.
I have the obligation to bring forward to you any proposed settlement offers.
But we're still moving forward with the court
Yeah,
proceedings.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and we can do that until the final day of the hearing.
So